It's the night of July 11th, 2023, in the municipality of Tlajomulco de Zúñiga in Jalisco State. The darkness is thick and the silence is deceptive. An anonymous call comes into the state prosecutor's office headquarters. A desperate voice reporting the discovery of human remains on a vacant lot. An emotional trap designed specifically to lure in those who, out of duty or compassion, search for the disappeared. A convoy of police and prosecutor's office personnel heads to the site, driven by the urgency of the tragedy plaguing Mexico. Upon arrival, they step out of their vehicles, scanning the ground with flashlights, unaware that the soil beneath their feet has already been rigged. Suddenly, the ground erupts. It's not a shootout, not a conventional ambush. It's a simultaneous, coordinated, a devastating detonation that sends vehicles flying and shatters the pavement. 7 improvised explosive devices, landmines buried with military precision, turn the scene into a hell of fire and shrapnel. In seconds, 6 officers lie dead, and over a dozen are wounded. The attack wasn't carried out by a foreign army or a Middle Eastern terrorist faction, but by a criminal organization that's rewritten the rules of war in the Western Hemisphere. The masterminds watch from the shadows, aware they've crossed a new threshold. They've brought asymmetric warfare to Mexico's streets, using technology to sow primal fear. The organization behind this act is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG. But what drove a group of drug traffickers to adopt tactics worthy of international conflict zones? Is the CJNG just a criminal gang with too much cash? Or are we witnessing the birth of a paramilitary insurgency using drones and mines to challenge the state's very sovereignty? Join me as we dive into the organization's mindset and its elusive leader, the man who turned drug trafficking into a tech-driven terror enterprise. But before we plunge into this spiral of lethal innovation and calculated violence, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the stories shaping our contemporary reality's darkest side. And tell us in the comments, do you think the cartel's use of this military tech should be officially classified as international terrorism? Was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes just a lucky criminal? Or a ruthless strategist who grasped before anyone else that crime's future lay in tech warfare? Join me as we unravel the evolution of fear. To understand how we got to C4 loaded drones and minefields in Michoacán, we have to go back in time, long before the CJNG initials, because his cradle wasn't gold, but dirt. He grew up in the extreme poverty of the Tierra Caliente region, a geographically rich area ironically blessed with natural resources, but historically neglected by the government and claimed by crime. His large, humble family worked cultivating avocados, the so-called green gold. But Nemesio, with ambition surpassing his village's borders, he looked north. He didn't finish elementary school. Instead of books, his hands knew the hard labor of the fields, until, like millions of his countrymen, he decided to chase the American dream. In the mid-1980s, Oseguera Cervantes crossed the border into the United States. He settled in the San Francisco Bay Area, but not to work construction or farming. Nemesio dove into distributing heroin and methamphetamine. It was there, on California's streets, where he began grasping trafficking logistics, but also where he felt the law's weight. He was arrested in Sacramento for conspiracy to distribute heroin. After serving a 3-year sentence, he was deported to Mexico in 1989. Yet his return didn't mark his career's end, but the start of a supreme irony that would define his rise. Far from hiding, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes joined the police. He became an officer in the municipal force in Tomatlan, Jalisco. This strategic move let him operate from within, learning the system's weaknesses, patrol routes, and most importantly, forging connections with local power structures. It was during this time that he met Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, a member of a powerful family of avocado and drug traffickers known as Los Queenies. By marrying her, Mencho didn't just gain a wife, he sealed an alliance with the financial arm that would later fuel his military empire. Back then, regional hegemony belonged to the Millennium Cartel, allied with the powerful Sinaloa cartel of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ignacio Nacho Coronel. Mencho, with his police training and criminal instinct, became a trusted hitman and then security chief for Nacho Coronel. But narco power balance is always fragile. But in July 2010, the Mexican army killed Nacho Coronel in a Zapopan op. His death created an instant ravenous power vacuum. The Millennium Cartel splintered into two irreconcilable factions: La Resistencia, seeking to maintain old alliances, and Los Torcidos, led by Mencho, accused of betraying Coronel to claim the throne. From this foundational betrayal, from this blood spilled among former allies, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel was born. From its inception, the CJNG showed a different calling. They weren't content controlling the market. They wanted to control the narrative and physical territory in an absolute way. In 2011, they burst onto the national scene, presenting themselves as the Zeta Killers. In propaganda videos, dressed in black tactical uniforms, balaclavas, and high-caliber weapons, they read statements promising to clean Mexico of the Zetas, the era's bloodiest cartel. It was a brilliant, perverse marketing strategy, using brutality to sell themselves as saviors, as a necessary evil. But behind the vigilante rhetoric, Mencho was building an army. He understood that to survive against the state and rival organizations, he needed firepower superiority. But the true evolution, the quantum leap bringing us to today's topic, happened when brute force wasn't enough. Turning point. The moment the Mexican government realized it faced a next-level threat came on May 1st, 2015. That day, the federal government launched Operation Jalisco, aimed at capturing El Mencho. Security forces surrounded the area, confident in air superiority. But Mencho was waiting. In a maneuver more reminiscent of Black Hawk Down in Mogadishu than a police op, CJNG hitmen used a Russian-made RPG-7 rocket launcher to down a Mexican Air Force Cougar EC-725 helicopter. The impact was devastating. The aircraft plummeted in flames, killing 8 soldiers and a federal cop. It was a brutal show of force. For the first time, a cartel had downed a military aircraft with war weaponry. The message was clear. The skies no longer belonged to the government. Yet the helicopter downing brought immense pressure. The humiliated Mexican state threw its full might against the CJNG. That's when Mencho, always pragmatic, always observant, decided to shift strategy. Facing the army head-on was costly in men and resources. He needed a way to strike without exposing elite troops, a way to inflict psychological and physical damage from afar. The answer came from cheap, accessible commercial technology: drones. Organized crime's drone adoption wasn't immediate. It started as a surveillance tool, eyes in the sky to monitor troop or rival movements. But around 2017, Mexican intel began detecting a sinister tweak. In CJNG's clandestine labs, forced engineers and creative gunsmiths started adapting commercial drones, models anyone can buy on Amazon or in electronics stores, into bombers. The mechanism was crudely ingenious. They used plastic containers, often simple Tupperware or cups, filled with C4 explosive and metal shrapnel. Via a 3D printed release system or adapted cargo hooks, the operator could drop the deadly payload on a target with terrifying precision, all while sitting comfortably miles away, watching the carnage through a high-def screen. This new drone war's epicenter was in Michoacán State, El Mencho's homeland, specifically the Tierra Caliente region. There, the CJNG waged fierce war against a patchwork of local groups known as Carteles Unidos. Michoacán's geography, with rugged mountains and hard-to-access roads, made ground incursions slow and dangerous. Drones offered the perfect solution. January 2022. A video started circulating on social media and news outlets worldwide. Footage seeming straight from a Middle East war. A drone-mounted camera showed an aerial view of a forest camp. Blue tarps and armed men running in panic. Suddenly, a black object drops from the drone. Seconds later, an explosion shakes the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust and fire. The drone keeps recording, impassive as survivors flee. The video's most chilling part is at the end. The recording drone itself is downed or crashes, suggesting a suicide mission or blast wave hit. This tech use isn't just tactical, it's psychological. A drone's buzz, once linked to toys or photography, became imminent death's sound for Tepalcatepec and Aguililla residents. Civilians were caught in crossfire, house tin roofs pierced by sky-falling explosives. Schools and public squares stopped being safe spots. The CJNG had democratized air power. They didn't need a multi-million-dollar air force. With a few thousand pesos, they could keep an entire town under siege. Plus, the operator's anonymity hindered army response. Who do you shoot when the enemy is an electronic ghost in the sky? But terror innovation didn't stop in the air. While drones ruled the skies, the CJNG looked downward, to the ground, reviving an ancient, cruel tactic: landmines. Like with drones, the logic was area denial. If you can't occupy territory, ensure no one else can. In Michoacán and Jalisco's rural paths and roads, reports started emerging of farmers and cows blown to bits stepping on disturbed soil. The CJNG began planting improvised explosive devices, artisanal mines made from PVC pipes, gunpowder, nails, and pressure-sensitive detonators. This tactic, reminiscent of Colombia's FARC guerrillas or the Viet Cong, has a paralyzing goal: halt army armored vehicles and rival groups' advances known as monsters. These monsters, artisanal tanks armored with 1-inch steel plates, were nearly invulnerable to small arms fire. But a well-placed mine could shatter axles, flip the vehicle, or kill the crew from concussion. The July 2023 Tlajomulco attack was this strategy's culmination. It was a complex ambush combining human intel to lure victims and mine tech to execute them. It was a direct message to authorities: you're safe nowhere. If you come for us, the ground itself will swallow you. The sophistication behind these attacks reveals another disturbing CJNG structure aspect: specialized recruitment. They no longer seek just trigger pullers, they seek brains. Intel indicates the cartel has recruited, often forcibly, chemical engineers, electronics experts, college students, and aeronautics technicians. They've set up terror schools teaching device assembly, drone programming, and high-power explosive synthesis. Reports say they've even hired foreign mercenaries, ex-military from Colombia and the Middle East, to transfer guerrilla tactics and explosive handling knowledge. The cartel operates with specialized divisions, almost like a modern army, with its own combat engineer corps. This tech use also serves an economic function. A trained hitman is a valuable resource. Training, upkeep, and loyalty cost money. A commercial drone costs a fraction and is expendable. Losing a drone in a failed attack is an accounting error. Losing a lieutenant is a structure blow. Mencho, with his business mindset sharpened by years of logistics management, grasps war's cost-benefit ratio. This violence industrialization lets the CJNG project power across multiple states simultaneously: Jalisco, Michoacán, Guanajuato, Zacatecas, without over-thinning main combat forces. The Mexican government's response has been somewhat reactive. They've deployed anti-drone units using signal jammers, futuristic weapons resembling sci-fi rifles designed to cut operator device comms. They've acquired buried explosive detection tech and reinforced vehicle armor, but it's a constant arms race, a cat-and-mouse game. For every state measure, cartel engineers find a counter, switching frequencies, using more complex detonators, or simply ramping up attack volume. This evolution's social impact is devastating. Entire Michoacán towns have become ghost towns. People flee not just bullets, but fear of stepping on a mine while field working or hearing the buzz overhead while sleeping. Tech warfare has displaced thousands, creating an invisible humanitarian crisis. Social fabric tears when everyday surroundings militarize this way. No distinction between battlefront and home. All territory is war zone. El Mencho's figure, amid all this, remains a spectral enigma. Unlike Chapo, who sought fame, gave interviews, and wanted a movie about his life, Oseguera Cervantes has chosen silence and invisibility. There are very few photos of him, and those existing are old. Rumors say he suffers kidney failure, lives in mountains constantly moving, has died and been replaced, but his structure keeps operating with lethal efficiency. This invisibility makes him more terrifying. He's a faceless mind directing a drone and explosive army. His leadership hinges on iron discipline and brutal punishment for disloyalty. Under his command, the CJNG has gone from splinter cell to one of the planet's most powerful, technologically advanced criminal organizations, with presence on all continents. What we're witnessing in Mexico is a lab for future war. Cartels are testing tactics eventually copied by other criminal groups and terrorists worldwide. Mass violence's entry barrier has dropped drastically. If a criminal group can challenge a national army using consumer tech, what does this say about 21st century global security? The line between organized crime and terrorism has blurred completely. The CJNG doesn't just traffic drugs, it traffics violence, fear, and control. They've turned tech innovation into their sharpest weapon, proving human cruelty has no limits when given new tools. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes and his organization's story is a grim reminder of evil's adaptability. From Michoacán's avocado fields to California's prisons and back to Jalisco's mountains, his trajectory has been constant force escalation. Today, As drones patrol Tierra Caliente skies and mines wait patiently under Jalisco soil, the question is no longer how to stop drug trafficking, but how to disarm the war machine it spawned. The CJNG has shown it's willing to scorch the earth and conquer the sky to maintain hegemony. And as the world watches, terror tech keeps evolving. One buzz at a time, one explosion at a time. In a war seeming endless, this era's legacy won't just be seized drug tons or billions in laundered dollars, but irreversible criminal conflict transformation. They've set a dangerous precedent. Tech is neutral, but in unscrupulous hands, it becomes the ultimate force multiplier. Mexico's security battle now fights in the electromagnetic spectrum. 3D printing workshops and minds of engineers forced to serve death. It's a dystopian reality, no longer belonging to fiction, but to nightly news. And what do you think of this evolution? Do you believe tech is the key to defeating cartels or their most dangerous tool? Leave your answer in the comments, and if this story hit you hard,